Welcome back to the deep dive. If you were with us a few days ago, we opened a door that, honestly, it felt a little bit like stepping off a cliff. We started talking about the Zero Human Company.
It's a concept that sounds um, impossible until you actually start looking at the logistics. The idea of a fully autonomous corporate entity where the employees are, well, they're digital agents.
And when we discussed it last time, it was very much a vision thing. It was a framework, a hypothetical structure where you have an AI CEO and an AI technical lead. But today, we have to pivot. We have to pivot hard from theory to practice because something pretty significant happened in the last 24 hours.
It's no longer just a diagram on a whiteboard. The Zero Human Company has made its first hire.
And we aren't talking about another strategic algorithm sitting in a server rack debating philosophy. We are talking about the workforce, the grunts, the hands and eyes of the operation. Today, we are dissecting the arrival of ClawdBot.
And this really changes the texture of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because up until now, we've been talking about AI thinking. ClawdBot is all about AI doing.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, and we are going to get very technical today because you need to understand how this works, we need to cite our source. This update comes directly from readmultiplex.com. The article is titled The Zero Human Company, Implementing the ClawdBot AI Workforce, published today, January 24th, 2026.
And we really need to highlight the architect here, Brian Rommel.
He's the one running this experiment, correct? The human in the loop.
Well, experiment almost feels too small of a word. He's the chairman, the human observer, you could say. But what he's doing at Reed Multiplex is essentially trailblazing a whole new economic model in real time. This isn't a press release from Google or OpenAI.
No, not
This is a garage experiment. But it has the potential to disrupt how we think about, well, everything. Employment, companies, all of it.
It does feel like those early homebrew computer club days, doesn't it? People just soldering things together in a garage to see what happens.
It has that exact same energy, that raw foundational energy.
And look, if you want to see the raw data, the logs, the actual unfolding of this project, you need to go to readmultiplex.com. Seriously, become a member. It is so rare that you get to watch a paradigm shift happen day by day like this.
Absolutely. You are essentially paying for a front row seat to the future of work. It's an unbelievable resource.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We need to explain what happened today. We need to explain why an AI CEO decided to hire an open source bot. We need to break down the actual technology. What does it mean for a bot to have eyes?
And hands. Can't forget the hands.
And then we are going to walk you through how you could, in theory, install this thing on your own hardware, provided you are brave enough to do it.
And we should probably emphasize the bravery part. This is not a toy.
Oh, we will definitely get to the wild beast warning shortly, but let's start with the corporate structure, because this is the part that I think still confuses people. We have a human, Brian, but he didn't make the hiring decision.
Not directly, no. And this is absolutely crucial to understanding the zero human concept. Brian is the chairman. He sets the broad philosophical intent. You could say he points the ship in a general direction.
Okay, so he provides the mission statement.
Exactly. But the operational decisions, the hiring, the firing, the tech stack, those are all made by the C-suite.
And the C-suite is not human.
The CEO is Grok, the AI developed by XAI. And the chief engineer, the technical lead, is Claude Code, developed by Anthropic.
Okay, I want to pause there because you just said that so casually. The CEO is Grok. How does that actually manifest? Is it just Brian imagining what Grok would say? Or is there an actual data exchange happening?
No, it's a literal conversation, data to data. The system, maybe prompted by Brian, inputs the current status of the company and identifies the bottlenecks.
It's like a daily stand-up meeting.
A very advanced one, yeah. Grok processes that information with a strategic executive persona. It analyzes the deficit, and in this case, the deficit was execution.
Meaning what?
Meaning they had the high-level strategy from Grok, and they had the code architecture from Claude Code, but they lacked the agents to actually perform the tasks. Web browsing, file management, data entry, all the actual work.
So Grok basically realized, I have no hands.
Essentially, Grok identifies the need for a workforce, and then it consults with its chief engineer, Claude Code.
And this is the part that really surprised me when I was reading the source. Claude Code is an Anthropic product. You would expect it to just, recommend other Anthropic tools.
You absolutely would. That's what a human executive would do. Protect their turf, hire their friends, stay within the ecosystem.
Right. We're a Microsoft shop, so we use Microsoft products.
Exactly that. But these are AIs. They are optimizing purely for the objective. Claude Code analyzed all the available technology and recommended ClawdBot.
Which is completely open source.
Totally open source. It's not an Anthropic product at all. It's a tool built by a developer named Peter Steinberger. But Claude Code recognized that ClawdBot was the most robust agentic framework available for local control.
Yeah.
So the AI chief engineer effectively said, the best person for this job is this outsider.
And Grok, the CEO, agreed.
Grok signed off on it. That is the AI consensus that Rome talks about in the article. It wasn't Brian saying, hey, I want to try this cool new bot I found on GitHub. It was the AI leadership making a strategic, data-driven decision that ClawdBot was the necessary hire to scale the company.
That is, well, it's ruthlessly efficient. It removes all the ego and politics from hiring.
It does.
But they didn't just hire a piece of software. They allocated a budget. And this is where the rubber really meets the road for me. We aren't talking about, $50 for a subscription.
No, not even close. The update specifies a new budget allocation of $15,000.
$15,000 for a garage startup? That's a serious investment.
It is. And it's specifically for hardware. They are buying new computers equipped with high-end NVIDIA GPUs.
Okay, why? Why spend 15 grand on hardware when you can just rent cloud computing from Amazon or Microsoft for like pennies on the hour? This seems to go against the lean startup model.
It does, but it goes back to the core philosophy of the zero-human company. Independence. Sovereignty.
Explain that.
If you run your entire company on Amazon Web Services, you are fundamentally beholden to Amazon. If they raise their prices, you pay. If they have an outage, you're down. If you run all your AI brains on OpenAI's API, you are beholden to OpenAI. They can change the model, censor it, or just turn it off.
You're renting, not owning.
You're renting, not owning. Grok and Claude Code determined that to be truly autonomous, they need to own the compute.
They need to own the brain itself.
They need to own the physical infrastructure that runs the brain. By buying these expensive NVIDIA cards, they can run powerful, open-source, large language models locally on their own machines. And, more importantly, they can fine-tune those models.
Okay, explain fine-tune for the listener who might hear that term a lot, but doesn't know what it really means in practice.
Sure. A base model, like a Llama 3 or a Mistral that you can download, is like a new college graduate. It's smart. It knows a little bit about everything, but it doesn't know anything about your company.
It's generic.
It's generic. Fine-tuning is like sending that graduate to medical school or law school. You train it specifically on your company's data, your internal documents, your emails, your specific way of working. Grok, as the CEO, wants to train the ClawdBots, the employees, specifically on the zero-human company's operations. You can't do that cheaply or securely on someone else's cloud.
So the $15,000 is basically the cost of building a private university for their new AI employees.
That's a fantastic analogy. It is the cost of sovereignty. It's the cost of building their own culture in a way.
And the scale here, we're not just talking about one computer sitting in the corner.
No, the goal is to have a dozen ClawdBots running within the next month. A dozen independent agents, all working simultaneously on these new machines.
A dozen employees hired and onboarded in a day. Wow. Okay, let's pivot to the star of the show, ClawdBot. The source material calls it the red-hot new employee. But what is it? Because we use the word bot to describe everything from a simple Twitter spammer to a customer service script.
Right, the term is overused. ClawdBot is an agent. And the distinction between a chatbot and an agent is probably the most important technical distinction of 2026.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the real difference?
A chatbot like ChatGPT, in its basic web interface form, lives inside a text box. You type, "Write me a poem," and it generates text. That's it. It stops there. It cannot leave that box.
It can't, open my email and send that poem for me.
It cannot. It can't save a file to your desktop. It cannot open a new browser tab. It is, for all intents and purposes, a brain in a jar.
Useful, but completely paralyzed.
Exactly. An agent, like ClawdBot, has actuators. It has the ability to manipulate its environment.
The source says it has eyes and hands. Now, my laptop doesn't have little robot arms sticking out of it, so what does that mean in a technical sense?
So when they say hands, they're talking about browser automation and operating system control. Technically, this often uses frameworks developers know, like Puppeteer or Playwright.
Right, which are tools for web developers, usually for testing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Developers use them to test websites, to automatically click buttons and fill out forms to see if they work. ClawdBot hijacks that capability for productivity. You can read the code of a website, the DOM, the document object model, identify the submit button, and then programmatically click it.
So it's navigating the web just like I do, but it's doing it through the code, not by moving a mouse cursor.
Precisely. And then you add the eyes component. For that, it's using vision models. It can take a screenshot of your screen, feed that image to an AI model, and that model can analyze the pixels to understand, oh, that's a pop-up window asking for a password, or that's a CAPTCHA I need to solve.
So it's not just reading the text, it's actually seeing the interface like a person would.
It sees the interface. It understands the context of the interface, and it can manipulate that interface. That is the fundamental difference. A chatbot talks about doing the work. An agent does the work.
And the source describes this as having a cut and paste employee. That sounds, it sounds incredibly efficient, but also a little bit dystopian.
It is the ultimate expression of efficiency. Think about it. In a human company, if you hire a new marketing assistant, you have to train them. It takes 3 months, maybe 6, to get them fully up to speed on your systems and your culture.
And then they get a better offer and quit.
And then they quit, and you start all over. With ClawdBot, because it's just software, once you configure one instance to be the perfect marketing assistant, once you've tweaked all the prompts and the settings and given it access to the right tools, you just copy the folder.
Creature role plus C.
Paste.
Yeah.
Creature role plus V. Now you have 2 perfect experts. Paste again. Now you have a whole department of 10.
You can literally scale a department with a copy-paste command.
That is the open source advantage that Brian Rommel is so excited about.
Yeah.
You own the code. You aren't renting a user seat from Salesforce for $1,000 a year. You are spawning instances of your own perfectly trained employees for the cost of electricity.
We really need to talk about the creator of this tool, Peter Steinberger, because the source speaks about him in almost reverential tones.
Yeah, visionary and genius were the words used. And honestly, when you look at the GitHub repository and the documentation, it feels justified.
Why? What did he do that, say, Google or Microsoft with their billions in R&D didn't do?
He built something hackable. The big companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, they're obsessed with safety rails. They want to build a walled garden where you can't possibly break anything, which also means you can't do anything truly powerful.
They put a speed governor on the engine.
A very strict one. Steinberger went the other way. He built a framework that is essentially a raw engine. It's designed to be self-improving. It's fully on-premise, meaning it runs on your machine. He basically gave us the keys to the Ferrari and then published the blueprints for how to build your own engine modifications.
And that's the iPhone revolution comparison they make in the article.
Exactly. He created a platform that other people can now build on top of. It's not a finished product. It's a foundation.
Okay, so we have the corporate structure, we have the bot itself, but now we really need to talk about the danger. Because Section 3 of our dive is all about architecture and privacy, but there is a massive flashing warning label on this thing.
The wild beast. That's what the source calls it.
Why is it a wild beast? If it's just a piece of software, can't I just close the window or force quit if it goes rogue?
It's not that simple. Remember, we just said it has hands. It has full access to your file system. It has access to your computer's terminal or command line.
Meaning it can type commands directly into my computer's most basic functions.
Exactly. So imagine a simple, helpful prompt. You ask ClawdBot, hey, can you clean up my old files to free up some space?
Sounds great. I need to do that.
It is helpful. Unless the AI hallucinates, which they still do, let's be clear, and it decides that your System32 folder in Windows or your Family Photos folder fits the criteria for old files.
And it just deletes them.
It deletes them instantly.
Yeah.
And because it's running as an agent with the same permissions you have on your machine, there is no undo button for some of those actions. There's no trash can. It's just gone.
If you can delete it, it can delete it.
That's the rule. So the recommendation, screened from the rooftops, is do not run this on your daily driver.
Absolutely not. Do not install this on the laptop you use for your online banking and your work presentations. Not yet. You need to sandbox it.
You must sandbox it.
Okay, define sandbox for us in this context.
A sandbox is a core security concept. It means isolating a program so that if it explodes, it only destroys the box it's in, not the whole house. It contains the blast.
So how do we do that in practice?
The absolute best way is hardware isolation. Brian Rommel recommends a dedicated machine. Go on eBay, buy a used Mac Mini for a few $100 or an old PC, install a fresh operating system, and that machine is your AI lab. Nothing else goes on it.
That makes sense.
If the bot then wipes the entire hard drive, you just reinstall the OS and laugh about it. You haven't lost your life's work.
You don't lose your tax documents and your kids' baby pictures.
Precisely. Now, if you can't buy new hardware, you can use things like virtual machines or Docker containers, but really, for this level of agentic behavior, physical separation is the safest bet for now.
Speaking of physical separation and hardware, I loved the Raspberry Pi debate in the source material. This was a moment where the personality of the AI CEO really, really came out.
It was hilarious and so telling. So Brian, the human chairman, is looking at the budget. And like any good businessman, he wants to keep costs down. He suggests using Raspberry Pis.
Which are those tiny credit card-sized computers? They cost, what, like $80?
Right. They're great for hobbyists. Great for running a retro game emulator or a simple file server. So Brian suggests this. And Grok, the AI CEO, responds by calling him cheap and clueless.
Laughs. The machine insulted the maker. It's like something out of a movie.
It is. But here's the thing. Grok had a very valid point. It wasn't just being mean.
Okay, what was the technical argument? Why did Grok have such a problem with the Raspberry Pi?
It comes down to two things: inference speed and memory bandwidth.
Unpack that for us.
Large language models are massive files. We're talking gigabytes and gigabytes of data. To generate a single thought or process we call inference, the computer has to move huge chunks of that data from its RAM to the processor very, very quickly. A Raspberry Pi has notoriously slow memory bandwidth.
So it thinks slowly.
Painfully slowly. If you ask a Raspberry Pi to write an email using a modern local LLM, you might be waiting 45 seconds, maybe a minute, for the first word to appear on the screen.
And Grok's argument is that a company just can't run at that speed. It defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. Grok's whole argument was that in a zero-human company, speed is the only currency that matters.
Yeah.
If your AI employees are 100 times slower than a human, you haven't disrupted anything. You've just automated bureaucracy.
Right.
They need the high-end NVIDIA GPUs because those cars have something called VRAM video RAM that is incredibly fast. They can do that inference process in milliseconds, not minutes.
So the insult, cheap and clueless, was actually a valid, data-driven technical critique of the proposed infrastructure.
It was a brutal but accurate performance review.
Yeah.
And they compromised. The source does note that ClawdBot can run on a Raspberry Pi, specifically the 16 GB RAM model if you just want to experiment with it. But for the actual company operations, they're spending the 15 grand. They are getting the big rigs.
Now, we've talked about the hardware, which is like the body, and the ClawdBot software, which is the hands. But we need to talk about the brain, because ClawdBot itself is just the interface, right? It needs a model to plug into.
Correct. ClawdBot is the puppet. The LLM, the large language model, is the puppeteer. And you have choices here, which is part of the beauty of the system.
What are the options?
Well, you can plug it into a cloud model. The source mentions Claude Opus. Very smart.
Yeah.
Very capable. But it lives on Anthropic server, and you pay per use.
So it's smart, but it's rented and not private.
Right. Or you can use Grok. Currently, the Zero Human company is using Grok as the brain for these bots.
Because Grok, the CEO, recommended it. A little self-serving.
A little convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the real end game, the direction this is all headed, is local models using free open source tools like Llama.
Llama. Okay, I've seen that name popping up everywhere on tech forums. What is it exactly?
Llama is a fantastic tool that lets you download and run powerful models like Llama 3 or Mistral directly on your own hard drive. It makes using local AI incredibly simple. And this is crucial for the versatility of the whole system.
How so? Why is that versatility so important?
Think about it like task routing in a human office. If you have a really complex legal document that needs to be analyzed, you might give that to your top, most expensive lawyer. In the AI world, you route that request to Grok or Claude Opus, the big brains in the cloud. It costs money, but you need that peak intelligence.
Okay, but what if I just need to summarize a list of 100 customer emails? I don't need a Harvard-educated lawyer for that.
Exactly. You route that to the local model running on your NVIDIA card via Llama. It's completely free after the initial hardware cost. It's totally private because the data never leaves your machine, and it's incredibly fast. A truly efficient zero-human company will constantly be arbitrating between smart and expensive versus good enough and free.
It's just classic resource management, but for cognitive labor.
It is. It's the new logistics.
All right, let's move into section 4, the technical deep dive. We've talked about eyes and hands, but what are the actual features? What makes this feel like magic, as the source puts it?
The magic is really in the modularity. ClawdBot isn't a single monolithic program. It's built around plugins.
Kind of like extensions for your web browser.
That's a perfect analogy. It has a plugin for Gmail, so it can read and write emails. It has a plugin for GitHub, so it can manage code repositories. It has a plugin for Spotify.
Spotify. Wait, why on earth does my AI employee need to control the music?
Laughter. Well, maybe to set the mood for that vibe coding, which we have to get to. But it just shows the extensibility. It can control smart home devices.
So it could, in theory, turn the lights off at the office at the end of the day.
Potentially, yeah. It can access scanners, cameras, audio inputs.
Yeah.
And the outline from the source mentions robotics. The clear implication is that if you hook this software up to a physical robotic arm, the hand becomes literal, not just a metaphor.
Okay, that's where it starts getting very sci-fi. But I want to ask about infinite memory. We hear this claim about AI all the time. This AI remembers everything you've ever said. But usually, after I talk to a chatbot for an hour, it starts forgetting my name. How is this different?
You're right to be skeptical. Standard LLMs have what's called a context window. You can think of it like a short-term memory buffer on a piece of paper. As the conversation goes on, you run out of space, and the oldest information at the top gets erased to make room for new stuff.
So it literally falls off the cliff.
It falls off the cliff. ClawdBot uses a different architecture. It almost certainly uses a vector database or a sophisticated logging system to store key interactions and summaries of conversations permanently.
So it has a file cabinet, not just a little scratch pad.
Exactly. It has a long-term memory system, and this is what enables what the source calls proactive behaviors. This part is the real game changer.
Explain proactive. What does that mean?
Most AI is reactive. You poke it, it moves. You ask a question, it gives an answer. ClawdBot, because of its memory and its ability to run on a schedule using things called cron jobs, can be proactive. It can wake itself up at 8 a.m. every morning, scan your email for urgent messages, cross-reference those messages with the memory of yesterday's big project, and then draft a reply for you before you've even logged in.
So it has its own calendar. It has its own agenda. It's not just waiting for me to tell it what to do.
It does. It's not waiting for permission to exist or to work. It acts.
And the interface for all this powerful, proactive stuff. Am I sitting there typing into a black screen with green text like a hacker in a 90s movie?
You can if you want to, but you don't have to. The genius of the user interface design is that it integrates with the messaging apps you already use. Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, even iMessage.
Oops, I'm texting my employee.
Right, literally texting your employee.
Yeah.
And because of that long-term memory we just discussed, the relationship starts to feel personal. You could just say, hey, give me an update on the Q3 marketing project, and it replies right there in the chat, just like a human colleague would. It completely lowers the friction. You don't feel like you are using software. You feel like you're communicating with a team member.
Okay, I know there are listeners right now looking at their old Mac Mini in the closet and thinking, can I actually do this? Let's walk them through it. The installation guide, section 5.
Right, the novice-friendly guide.
Now, is it actually novice-friendly, or is it novice-friendly for someone who already has a computer science degree?
I was surprised. Looking at the documentation, Peter Steinberger did a lot of work to smooth out the typical bumps and hurdles of setting up open source software.
Okay, walk us through the ritual. What's step 1?
Step 1, prepare the hardware. We've covered this.
Yeah.
Get a dedicated machine, even an old one, connected to the internet. That's the foundation.
Step 2, the scary part.
The terminal command. Now, don't panic. On a Mac, you open the terminal app. You go to the ClawdBot website. You copy one single line of code. It starts with curl-fsssl. You paste it into the terminal. You hit enter.
And what is that curl command actually doing in the background?
Curl is a command that just fetches data from a URL. In this case, it's fetching a special installation script. That script then takes over. It automatically installs Node.js, which is the runtime environment needs. It installs all the other dependencies, does all the heavy lifting that usually frustrates beginners.
It's the easy button for installation.
It really is. Step 3 is the onboarding wizard.
Yeah.
After the installation, a script runs that asks you some questions. First, it makes you acknowledge the risk. You literally have to type yes to the warning that this is powerful software that can access your file.
Use a digital liability waiver.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then, step 4, choose the brain. This is where you paste in your API keys if you're using a cloud model like Grok or Claude, or you tell it which local model you want to use with Allama.
And step 5, this one sounds fun.
This is the fun part. Skills and personality. You enable specific skills like checking boxes for browser control or email access.
Yeah.
Then you give the bot a name.
I'm going with Bartholomew. He sounds diligent.
Bartholomew it is. You can even give him a profile picture. You give him a persona. You write Bartholomew. You are an expert in spreadsheet analysis and financial modeling.
And then the final step.
Step 6, secure launch. You run the final command to start the server, and certainly you get a notification. Bartholomew pops up in your Telegram chat. Hello, I am Bartholomew. I'm ready to work.
It's alive.
It's alive. And it's your employee.
And if I get stuck, because let's be honest, curl commands do fail sometimes. Networks glitch.
There is a huge and very active community. The GitHub issues page, the Discord servers. People are not just troubleshooting. They're building amazing things. They're building multi-agent systems where bots talk to each other. They're figuring out how to make it control their smart fridges. It's a tinkerer's paradise right now.
So let's bring it back to the big news of the day, the Zero Human Company update. Brian Ramel didn't just install this on one machine for fun. He set up a whole infrastructure.
He built the digital corporate headquarters. The update from today lists exactly what assets these new ClawdBot employees were given.
What's in the digital welcome basket for a new AI employee?
First, they get an identity. A domain name was registered, zerohumancompany.ai, and then each ClawdBot gets its own individual email address.
So Agent 1 at zerohumancompany.ai, Agent 2 at zerohumancompany.ai, and so on.
Exactly. This is so important because it gives the bot a legal and social identity on the network. With an email address, it can sign up for newsletters, it can email vendors, it can create accounts on other websites. To the outside world, it just looks like another person.
That is bizarrely and fascinatingly corporate.
They were also given Google Cloud access for file storage docs, spreadsheets, and they were given their own accounts at Hugging Face, which is where you download AI models, and GitHub, where you download code.
So they have their own login credentials. They are completely distinct entities on the internet.
Yes. And the vision here, the reason for all this, is infinite scalability. Brian talks about creating multi-ager systems.
How does that actually work in practice?
Imagine you need a marketing department. You take one ClawdBot and you fine-tune it. You teach it your company's brand voice, your target audience, your key messages. Then you clone it. One instance's only job is to run the Twitter account. Another instance runs the LinkedIn account. A third instance does nothing but monitor Google Analytics and write reports.
You build an entire department just by copying a file over and over.
And if your marketing budget gets cut, you don't have layoffs, you just delete the copies. You can scale your workforce up and down instantly with zero friction and zero HR overhead.
The source also mentioned this term vibe coding. I really need you to explain this to me because it sounds like a Gen Z meme, not a serious software development practice.
It does sound funny, but it's actually pointing to a profound shift in what software engineering is becoming.
How so?
Okay, traditionally, coding is all about perfect syntax. A missing semicolon, a misplaced bracket, and the entire program breaks. It's rigid. Vibe coding is about declaring your intent. You tell the AI, I want an app that feels like a retro 80s arcade game, but it also tracks my daily calorie intake. That's the vibe.
And the AI handles all the messy syntax and logic.
The AI handles the rigorous logic. ClawdBot is perfect for this because it can iterate. It writes the code, it tries to run the code, it sees the error message, it reads the error message, and it fixes its own code. It does this loop 100 times a minute until it works. You, the human, are just managing the outcome. The vibe, not the tedious process.
So I provide the vibe, the bot provides the code. That's a different kind of job.
It's a completely different kind of job. You're a creative director, not a typist.
We're coming toward the end of our time here, and we need to address the big so what. Section 7. Why does any of this matter to the person driving their car right now, listening to us?
The source material has a very heavy quote in it. It says, ClawdBot heralds job displacement akin to the Industrial Revolution.
That's not a small statement. That's a huge claim.
It's not. But the economic argument is pretty stark. For the Zero Human Company, embracing this technology isn't a choice. It's an act of survival. If you can have a workforce that costs $0 in ongoing labor, only the upfront cost of electricity and hardware, and works 24/7 without breaks,
You cannot compete against that with a traditional human-based labor model. It's impossible.
you can't. The ROI, the return on investment, is effectively infinite once the hardware is paid for. It's an economic imperative.
But there's a flip side to this, a more optimistic angle, the data sovereignty idea.
This is the positive spin, and it's a powerful one. We are seeing a potential shift away from SaaS, which is software as a service, to something the source calls personal dominance.
Explain that shift, SaaS to personal dominance.
For the last 20 years, SaaS has meant rent. You rent Salesforce. You rent Microsoft Office. You rent Adobe Creative Cloud. Your data lives on their servers. You are a digital serf on their land, paying a monthly tax.
Right.
Personal dominance is the opposite. It means you own the agents. You own the data. You own the hardware it runs on. You are taking back control of your digital life and your company's destiny.
It's the difference between taking a taxi everywhere and owning your own car.
Or owning your own fleet of self-driving cars. It's a fundamental move towards self-sufficiency.
And building what the source calls self-sufficient AI ecosystems.
That is the ultimate goal.
This has been a massive, massive update. Let's try to recap the key points quickly.
All right. We have the Zero Human Company, which we thought was theoretical, making its first actual hire, ClawdBot.
And ClawdBot is not just a chatbot. It's an open source, locally run agent that has eyes and hands to interact with the computer.
The corporate hierarchy is now established. Grok is the CEO, Claude Code is the chief engineer, and a growing team of ClawdBots are the labor.
And maybe the most important part. The tools are out there. You can do this today on your own hardware.
But please, remember the warning. Sandbox it. It really is a wild beast.
If you want to follow this incredible experiment, and you really, really should, go to readmultiplex.com. Brian Remmel is documenting every single step of this journey, failures and all.
Support his work.
Yeah.
Become a member. It's one of the only places you can see this unvarnished, real-time evolution of a new kind of company.
I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought, a question to just sort of chew on for the rest of the day.
Go ahead.
We've talked about copy-pasting employees. If I can copy-paste 10,000 perfect expert agents onto a server rack in my basement, and they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for just the cost of my power bill.
Yeah.
Am I a small business?
Or are you a new kind of multinational corporation with the productivity of a Fortune 500 company?
Exactly. Does the very definition of company size even exist anymore when the headcount is digital and scalable in an instant?
The lines are blurring very, very fast.
And we are here to watch them fade. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you in the future.